Welcome to this analysis of the Chelsea versus Manchester United game. Please note this game was managed by Michael Carrick, who's the interim manager to the interim manager, so these tactics might not carry on through the rest of the season. Okay, so starting with Chelsea's deep build-up, they typically build up in this 3-4-3 shape or a 3-1, so that would be with Jorginho deeper and then Ruben Loftus-Cheek a little bit higher, or a 3-2-5 as they progress up the pitch. In the deep shape, so we're talking about that 3-4-3 and the 3-1, the Chelsea wing-backs floated to help the Chelsea midfielders evade the Manchester United 4-2-1-3 press. As Chelsea evaded the Manchester United press, the wing-backs would try and get up to support, so they would either overlap or underlap, typically with James overlapping and providing crosses and then Alonso trying to get into the box. Whereas with Alonso, if the ball goes down his side, he's usually going to try and drive towards the box. He will try and cross sometimes, but he will typically be helped by both Werner and Hudson-Odoi being in that space and overloading that area. Whilst I say that Manchester United had a 4-2-1-3 press, that's quite fluid in that when Chelsea passed out the back, that was actually a 3-3-1-3 press. With it, I think this is a good place to start. You can see that front three here of Manchester United staying relatively narrow, making it quite difficult for Chelsea to be able to pass into their centre midfielders. And as mentioned, you have Chelsea set up in their 3-4-3 with the wing-backs as high and wide as possible. As Chelsea play around the Manchester United front line, the full-back for Manchester United, in this case Telles, has to rush out to try and close down Reece James. Operating between the lines were the two forwards of Ziyech and then also Hudson-Odoi. Later in the game, you had Mason Mount do that role as well, constantly threatening in behind. At this stage in the game, you had Timo Werner, who was the one constantly looking to try and get behind, but typically he was doing that more towards this left-hand side of the pitch. Here, Manchester United have been able to have their full-back Telles press Reece James well enough that he's forced into a back pass, which was the signal for Manchester United's forwards to try and press the centre-backs. Whenever Manchester United were able to force Chelsea into pass-backs, they tried to force the passes all the way back to the goalkeeper because Mendy isn't the greatest with his feet. See the chance that he gifted to Fred. When forced back, Chelsea would just split and they would set up in their 3-4-3 again. So we can see here with the three centre-backs dropping deep and providing options, and then the Chelsea centre midfielders are sitting in positions where they can potentially receive from the wide centre-backs of Chelsea. This is another scenario. We've got Chelsea set up again in that 3-4-3. You've got Manchester United trying to press in their 3-3-1-3 with Fred as the CDM in this shape. You've now got Ronaldo on. He didn't start this game, likely due to Manchester United's focus on counter-attacking, and part of that being forcing errors out of Chelsea's back line or goalkeeper through pressing, which Ronaldo doesn't really suit. Before we talk about how Chelsea exploited the space, I do think it's also good to mention the position of the far-sided attacker for Manchester United. They typically were set up in such a position as they could either go and press the central centre-back for Chelsea, or also be in a good position to try and counter-attack if Manchester United were able to win the ball. In this phase of possession, it's important to note James's position, because he's attracted his defender with him. That then allows one of the other forwards who are floating, whether that was Mason Mount later in the game or Timo Werner, it allows them to then go and exploit the space and get into a foot race against Bailly. So Bailly is drawn inside by the movement of Ziyech, leaving tons of space out wide because earlier Telles went to go and press James. James is going to rush into that space and then try and whip across into the box. This was a pattern throughout the game. Fortunately for Manchester United, with as many defensive midfielders as they had, it was really key, the positioning of Matic as well as McTominay. Earlier on in the game, only one of them would drop, typically McTominay, but then later on in the game, we had both of them dropping into that back line and forming almost a 6-4 at times. And going back to that 3-2-5 we mentioned, we see here Hudson-Odoi coming narrow, and then you have the wing back in Alonso. Actually, it's one of the most advanced players to try and attack James's cross. And then we look at this crossing opportunity for Pulisic in the 81st minute. I only bring this up because it shows again how Chelsea were creating those crossing opportunities out wide with the movement of their wide midfielders as well as also their wing backs. But then it also shows Manchester United centre midfielders in McTominay and also Matic and Fred getting into defensive positions either in the back line or just in front of them, and just generally making it very difficult for Chelsea to be able to win headers or cutbacks on the like in that space. And where Manchester United needed luck, they had it. See the Rudiger chance. So here we have the Manchester United 3-3-1-3 press. Manchester United just really don't want the ball to go into either Jorginho or Ruben Loftus-Cheek. So you see that with just how many players they have in this central space, and Chelsea would oblige to typically pass out into the wide spaces. Although the Chelsea wing-backs started quite high, they were typically forced to drop by how aggressive the Manchester United full-backs were at pressing them. Although this did isolate the Manchester United centre-backs against Chelsea's forwards on numerous occasions. Fortunately for Manchester United, Mendy isn't the most confident in passing out the back, and Manchester United are able to force Chelsea in this occasion to kick along. This is a bit later on in the game. Manchester United are playing in like a 6-4 at this point. Chelsea have got their 3-2-5 going on, but with Lukaku up front now. Their forwards are still floating, so tucking inside or holding the width, which then dictates where their wing backs are going to position. Unfortunately for Chelsea, Manchester United were really stubborn and happy to drop their centre midfielders like Matic into the back line to allow Manchester United's back line to handle the fact that there are so many forwards committed. Chelsea try and take advantage of the front five, but Manchester United were happy to drop their centre midfielders, as we mentioned, into the back line to supplement it and to maintain the numerical advantage that most football defensive structures want. See Matic covering across so that Bailly can stay central with Lindelof. So Matic has come across and he's plugged that gap, but then that has left another gap for Chelsea to exploit. Pulisic elects not to make that pass and instead pass backwards and try and draw Manchester United out so that they can test Manchester United's ability to protect this space again. So in the last phase, we saw that Manchester United were able to clump up on this right-hand side for Chelsea, left-hand side for Manchester United, and make it difficult for Chelsea to progress. Chelsea then chose to go backwards and draw Manchester United's players away from the space they're looking to attack. And now you see the fruits of their labour, where Manchester United's positions are just off in that Matic has gone back central again, but then that has left a ton of space for Chelsea to be able to exploit, and then Fred is obviously further away, so not able to compress the space like he was earlier, and then you have Pulisic able to combine with Mount to get in behind Tadic. In that 3-4-3, Chelsea's wide centre-backs in Rudiger and Chalobah are really aggressive and very quick on the counter-press, which definitely fed into how little possession Manchester United had. But this was also a function of Chelsea choosing to counter-attack whenever Manchester United committed players forward, often positioning Werner on the left-hand side so that they can hit him as early as possible during those counters. With regards to Manchester United's attack, it was all very direct, looking to try and counter-attack. Typically, those counter-attacking or direct plays were coming from Manchester United being able to successfully either force pass backs and then hope that one of the defenders would make an error, or turnovers deeper in Manchester United's half, where then you have the speed of Sancho and Rashford to be able to burst in behind. Of course, they also countered from Chelsea's set pieces in Manchester United's half, whether that was corners, free kicks or throw-ins. We have Manchester United set up in that 3-3-1-3 that I mentioned. We have Fred in that CM position, Bruno Fernandes in that false 9 position, and then your two wide midfielders, Rashford and Sancho high up, whilst the fullback for Manchester United looks to try and press the wing-backs of Chelsea, allowing Chelsea to potentially exploit this space in behind the Manchester United fullback and isolate themselves against hopefully a slower Manchester United centre-back. In this case, James makes a pass around the corner and it goes to Rashford, and immediately Fred is on his bike to try and provide himself as either an option or try and get up the pitch. And then also Manchester United's fullbacks in Wan-Bissaka and Telles would try and support when they can. The wide centre-backs for Chelsea were very high to try and counter-press against the forwards of Manchester United, whilst Chelsea were looking centrally to try and swamp the players on the ball and hopefully force a turnover. This narrowing by Sancho was a feature of Manchester United's counters as well. Far-sided Manchester United player would try and get into a central position so that if Rashford is able to escape or Sancho on the other side, then the other forward would be in a position to receive maybe a cross or early through ball from the other in a goal-scoring position. And then finally, I have to mention the Chelsea corners because there were so many of them. Manchester United were really good with Telles' positioning and his attacking the ball at the net post against Chelsea's in-swingers, but also with the likes of McTominay, Fred and Matic, you have quite a diligent midfield to help bolster the defence. And with that, thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, please give it a like. And with that, we're out.